Hello everyone. Today our topic is Central Civil Services Conduct Rules 1964, rule number 16. Investment, lending and borrowing. No government servant shall speculate in any stock, share or other investment. Means long term or occasional investment is allowed for a government servant, but frequent trading for quick profit is not allowed, provided that nothing in this sub-rule shall apply to occasional investments made through stockbrokers or other persons duly authorized and licensed or who have obtained a certificate of registration under the relevant law. Means occasional investments made through registered or authorized stockbrokers are permitted, but frequent trading for quick profit is not allowed as a government servant. Okay. Explanation. Frequent purchase or sale or both of shares, securities or other investments shall be deemed to be speculation within the meaning of this sub-rule. Means frequent buying and selling of shares or securities is treated as speculation. So here is said about the meaning of speculation. Speculation means frequent buying and selling of shares or securities is treated as speculation. Okay, let us move to the point number 2. No government servant shall make or permit any member of his family or any person acting on his behalf to make any investment which is likely to embarrass or influence him in the discharge of his official duties. For this purpose, any purchase of shares out of the quotas reserved for directors or of companies or their friends and associates shall be deemed to be an investment which is likely to embarrass the government servant. Means a government servant should not make any investment that may influence or affect his or her official decisions. Investing through family members or others on one's behalf is also prohibited. And buying shares from special quotas reserved for company directors, friends, or associates is considered improper. Means, as a government servant, you cannot buy shares from special quotas reserved for company directors, friends, or associates, and you cannot invest on one's behalf. It is also prohibited. Okay. Point number 2. No government servant is involved in the decision making process of fixation of price of an initial public offering or follow up public offering of shares of a central public sector enterprise shall apply either himself or through any member of his family or through any person acting on his behalf for allotment of shares in the initial public offerings or follow up public offerings of such central public sector enterprise. Means a government servant who involved in fixing the price of central public sector enterprises like IPO, FPO should not apply for those shares either personally or through family members or through anyone acting on their behalf. Okay. Point number 3. If any question arises whether the transaction is of nature referred to in sub-rule 1 or sub-rule 2, the decision of government thereon shall be final. Means if there is any doubt about whether an investment violate these rules, so then at that time government decision is final. Okay. No government servant shall save in the ordinary course of business with a bank or a public limited company, either himself or through any member of his family or any person acting on his behalf, lend or borrow or deposit money as a principal or an agent to or from or with any person or firm or private limited company within the local limits of his authority or with whom he is likely to have official dealings or otherwise place himself under any pecuniary obligation to such person or firm or private limited company. Means a government servant should not lend, borrow, or deposit money with any person, firm, or private limited company within his or her area of official authority or with whom he or she has or likely to have official dealings with. This also applies if done through a family member or any person on government servant's behalf. However, normal transactions with banks or public limited companies are allowed. Okay. Here, pecuniary obligation means financial obligation. Lend company to a person at interest or in a manner whereby return in money or in his kind is charged or paid. Means a government servant should not lend money on interest or in any way that earns money or other benefits in return. Okay. Provided that a government servant may give to or accept from a relative or a personal friend a purely temporary loan of a small amount free of interest or operate a credit account with a bona fide tradesman or make an advance of pay to his private employee. Means a government servant may give or take a small temporary or interest free loan from a relative or a personal friend, maintain a credit account with genuine shopkeeper or tradesman, and give a salary advance to a private employee. Okay, provided further that nothing in the sub rule shall apply in respect of any transaction entered into by a government servant to the previous sanction of the government. Means these restrictions not apply if the government servant has prior sanction approval of the government. Okay. When the government servant is appointed or transferred to a post of such nature as would involve him in the breach of any provisions of Subrule 2 or Subrule 4, he shall forthwith report the circumstances to the prescribed authority and shall thereafter act in accordance with such order as may be made by such authority. Means if the government servant is appointed, transferred to a post where these rules may be violated, he or she must immediately report the matter to the prescribed authority and follow the instructions or orders issued by that authority. Okay. Let us go to the rule number 17, insolvency and habitual indebtedness. Insolvency means being unable to repay debts. Okay. And habitual indebtedness means being repeatedly in debts. Okay. If a government servant shall so manage his private affairs as to avoid habitual indebtedness or insolvency, a government servant against whom any legal proceeding is instituted for the recovery of any debt due from him or for adjudging him as an insolvent shall forthwith report the full facts of the legal proceedings to the government. Means a government servant should manage personal finances properly and avoid habitual indebtedness, means being unable to repay debts, and insolvency. To declare him, if any legal case is filed against him or her for recovery of the debt, to declare him or her insolvent, he or she must immediately inform the government with full details. Okay. Note the burden of proving that the insolvency of or indebtedness was the result of circumstances which, with the exercise of ordinary diligence, the government servant should not have foreseen or over which he had no control and had not proceeded from extravagant or dissipated habits shall be upon the government servant. Means if the government servant becomes insolvent or heavily indebted, he or she must prove that it happened due to unavoidable circumstances beyond his or her control. It was not his or her fault and not because of spending too much money carelessly or living an extravagant means luxurious lifestyle. So a government servant should prove that these all are because of the things or circumstances which are not in my control, not because of my fault. Rule number 18, movable, immovable, and valuable property. Every government servant shall, on his first appointment to any service or post, submit a return of his assets and liabilities in such form as may be prescribed by the government, giving the full particulars regarding. Means when a person joins government service for the first time, he or she must submit a statement of return of all assets and liabilities to the government. The statement should include immovable property inherited by him or owned or acquired by him or held by him on lease or mortgage either in his own name or in the name of any member of his family or in the name of any person. Here, immovable property means details of land, house, flat, plot, building, etc. Includes property inherited, purchased, leased, mortgaged in your own name or family member's name. Okay. And shares, debentures, and cash, including bank deposits inherited by him, are similarly owned, acquired, or held by him. Means you should give the details of shares, debentures. Here debentures means company investment certificates, cash and bank deposits like recurring deposit, fixed deposit, etc. includes inherited and purchased investments. Okay, you should all submit these two. And other movable property inherited by him or similarly owned, acquired, or held by him. And means other mobile properties such as car, bike, gold, jewelry, furniture, valuable electronic items, etc. And debts and other liabilities incurred by him directly or indirectly. Debts and liabilities such as like home loan, car loan, personal loan, money borrowed from others, or any other financial liability. So you should submit the statement of all the assets and liabilities to the government servant as mentioned here on the joining date. Means when a person joins a government service for the first time. Note 1. Subrule 1 shall not ordinarily apply to Group D servants, but the government may direct that it shall apply to any such government servant or class of such government servants. Means, usually for Group D employees, these not apply, but government can decide it to apply in special conditions. Okay. Note 2. In all returns, values of items of immovable property worth less than 10,000 may be added and shown as a lump sum. The value of articles of daily use such as clothes, utensils, crockery, books, etc. need not be included in such return. Means while submitting return, mobile items which is less than 10,000 can be added and shown as one total amount. Daily use items like clothes, utensils, books, etc. need not be included. Note number 3. Where a government servant already belonging to service or holding a post in appointed to any other civil service or post, he shall not be required to submit a fresh return under this clause. Means if the government servant is already in service and joins another post, does not need to submit a fresh property return again. Every government servant belonging to any service or holding any post included in Group A and Group B shall submit an annual return in such form as may be prescribed by the government in this regard, giving full particulars regarding the immovable property inherited by him, or owned or acquired by him, or held by him on lease or mortgage, either in his own name or in the name of any member of his family, or in the name of any other person. Means for Group A and Group B officers, they must submit a property return every year. This includes immobile properties. No government servant shall, except with the previous knowledge of prescribed authority, acquire or dispose of any immobile property by lease, mortgage, sale, gift, or otherwise, either in his own name or in the name of any member of his family. Means before buying, selling, gifting, leasing, or mortgaging any immovable property, government servant must inform the prescribed authority. If provided that the previous sanction of the prescribed authority shall be obtained by the government servant if any sanction transaction is with the person having official dealing with him. Means if the transaction is with person having official dealings with government servant, prior permission is required. Okay. Point number 3, where a government servant enters into a transaction in respect of movable property, either in his own name or the name of the member of his family, he shall within 1 month from the date of such transaction report the same to the prescribed authority if the value of such property exceeds 2 months basic pay of the government servant. Means if the government servant buys or sells a mobile property like gold, car, which worth greater than 2 months of basic pay, must report to the prescribed authority within 1 month. If the transaction provided that previous transaction of the prescribed authority shall be obtained by the government servant if any such transaction is with the person having official dealings with him. Means if the transaction is with the person having official dealings, prior permission is required. Point number 4. The government or the prescribed authority may, at any time, by general or special order, require a government servant to furnish within a period specific in the order a full and complete statement of such movable or immobile property held or acquired by him or on his behalf or by any member of his family as may be specified in the order. Such statement shall, if so required by the government or by the prescribed authority, include the details of the means by which or the source from which such property was acquired. Means the government can ask government servant at any time to submit complete details of his or her mobile and immobile property. They may also ask how the property was acquired. So you, as a government servant, you need to furnish within the specific period in order. Point number 5, the government may exempt any category of government servants belonging to Group C or Group D from any of the provisions of this rule except Sub-Rule 4. No such exemption shall, however, be made without the concurrence of the Cabinet Secretariat, Department of Personnel. Means the government may exempt some group C and D from these rules. However, when asked, they need to provide property details. That is still applied. Such exemption request approval from Cabinet Secretariat or Department of Personnel is given. Explanation. For the purposes of this rule, expression mobile property. Here he explained about what mobile property includes. Okay, mobile property includes jewelry, insurance policies, annual premium of which exceeds 2 months basic pay of the government servant, shares, securities, and debentures, and all loans, whether secured or not, advanced or taken by the government servant, motor cars, motorcycles, horses, or any other means of conveyance, and refrigerators, radios, radiograms, and television sets. These all comes under the mobile property for a government servant. Okay. Point number two is prescribed authority means. So here he is also explaining about who the prescribed authority comes under. The government, in the case of government servant holding any group A post, except where any lower authority is specially specified by the government for any purpose. And head of the department in case of government servant holding any group B post, and head of the office in case of the government servant holding any group C or group D post. Means for group A post, government is the prescribed authority, and for group B, HOD, head of the department, and for group C and D, head of the office. So this comes under the prescribed authority. In respect of the government servant on foreign service or in deputation to any other ministry or any other government, the parent department on the cadre of which such government servant is born, or the ministry to which he is administratively subordinate as a member of the candidate. If the government servant is on foreign service or deputation, the parent department or the administrative ministry will be the prescribed authority. Okay. Explanation 2. For the purpose of this rule, lease means except where it is obtained from or granted to a person having official dealings with the government servant. A lease of immobile property from year to year for any term exceeding 1 year or reserving a yearly rent means. Here, let us know what is meant by lease. Lease means renting an immobile property like land, house, or flat, etc. So, here, lease for more than 1 year from year to year with yearly rent. And if lease is with person having official dealings with government servant, the relevant rules regarding prior permission also apply. Okay.